Want a locale, my garden of roses? There's no easy way to put this. Carter Page wasn't a foreign spy. He was an FBI agent, or at least an FBI employee. Shortly after the release of Devin Nunes's FISA memo, Senator Grassley released a separate memo, at the time heavily redacted, which has been re-released with much of its contents unredacted for public consumption. However, there remain a few key paragraphs which remain redacted, and I have a strong suspicion as to why. The FBI knew Carter Page wasn't a Russian spy, because he was, in fact, an undercover employee for the FBI. Now, if you haven't read the Grassley memo yet, I'm going to be producing a video after this one in which I read it in its entirety, so please go give that a watch. But how do we know that Carter Page was an FBI agent, or asset for that matter? Well, strangely enough, it was the New York Times who revealed his role with FBI investigations into 3 Russian spies in an article written in 2017, written in attempts to paint him as a Russian spy. But let's go back to the beginning of this. In 2012, the FBI had been pursuing 3 suspected spies who were working within the United States, named Evgeny Buryakov, Igor Sporyashev, and Viktor Podobny, according to disclosure by the Manhattan Federal Court in March of 2016. In these documents, it is reported that Sporyashev met with an undercover FBI employee posing as an analyst with a New York energy firm at an oil and gas industry conference, and that over the following 2 years, this undercover employee met with Sporyashev many times to discuss industry, economic, and political issues, and Sporyashev providing the undercover employee with gifts in cash in exchange for the information. In 2013, the undercover employee was provided with binders containing industry analysis, supporting documents, as well as covertly placed recording devices to provide to Sporyashev, who would then take these binders to meetings he had with Podobny and Buryakov before returning them to the undercover employee. These meetings would occur both in New York as well as on trips taken by the undercover employee to Moscow under the guise of speaking at industry conferences. The recording devices in the binders captured conversations in which Sporyashev revealed his employment by Russia's SVR, or Foreign Intelligence Service, as well as Buryakov's prior work in South Africa with the SVR. And the FBI used this evidence to then bring a case to Manhattan Federal Court against the 3 spies, a case that would last 3 years before Buryakov would plead guilty to charges of conspiring to act in the United States as an agent of the Russian Federation, with U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara and Assistant Attorney General John P. Carlin heading up the indictment. The undercover employee remained part of the investigation until the guilty plea was heard, but his identity was kept secret even afterwards, with his name being replaced with the code UCE1, or Undercover Employee 1, or Male 1 in all preceding documents. Meanwhile, a presidential election was only 9 months away, and Donald Trump was outstripping his counterparts in the Republican primaries, giving the Democrats reason to fear that their anointed choice for president might not be able to secure the landslide victory they had planned for. The populist rhetoric of the once Democratic voting Trump was reaching the working class and business class alike, and as is evidenced by text messages released over the last few months in the investigation into Peter Strzok, insurance plans had to be made to stop this man from becoming president. In June of 2016, the intelligence firm Fusion GPS, with funding from the Democratic National Committee and Clinton campaign, invested $160,000 into a former British spy named Christopher Steele in order to compile opposition research into Trump, and Mr. Steele grilled his Russian contacts to find any information he could to damn the then-candidate Donald Trump. He included in these documents contact between a foreign policy advisor for Trump's campaign named Carter Page and a suspected Russian intelligence operative named Igor Sechin on a trip to Moscow to speak at an industry conference. When the so-called Trump dossier was published by BuzzFeed in January of 2017, all eyes had fallen on Carter Page, a man that had only worked for the Trump campaign for 2 months. In an article dated April 4th, 2017, the New York Times published that Russians had tried to recruit Carter Page before he had worked for the Trump campaign, attempting to spin the story that he was likely a foreign spy or foreign agent, when in fact, in the article, the New York Times themselves admit that they knew Carter Page was working for the FBI at the time, revealing that Carter was interviewed in 2013 by the FBI after speaking to Podobny, as well as provided Mr. Page with binders that had listening devices installed in them to provide the then suspected Russian agents. In later testimony provided to the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, declassified on November 6th of 2017, Carter Page informed the committee that ABC News and BuzzFeed had contacted him on April 3rd of 2017 to tell him that U.S. government operatives had illegally disclosed his identity as Male 1 in the case against Buryakov, Sporyashev, and Podobny, 1 day before the New York Times ran with their article. While Buryakov, Sporyashev, and Podobny's names do not appear in the Trump dossier, there are only a very select number of people who knew the identity of undercover employee 1/male 1 from that case, one of which being Assistant Attorney General John P. Carlin, who, as head of the Justice Department's National Security Division, would have had to review the FISA applications and renewals filed against Carter Page in October of 2016. The same John Carlin who, with the FBI, hired and supported Carter Page as an undercover employee in the investigations and indictment of Evgeny Buryakov, then accused Mr. Page of being a Russian spy under FISA Title I. In other words, he knowingly lied. John Carlin resigned from his position on October 23rd of 2016, 2 days after the FISA applications had been filed, and 3 days before the warrant had been issued and surveillance went into effect. And had the New York Times not illegally unmasked him as an undercover employee for the FBI, no one would have been the wiser. Perhaps this is why Trump said they never thought they would get caught. I'll catch you next time, loves.